So let's start with the first topic area. How is the EPA? Tell me, how is the EPA preparing itself to deal with the oil and gas sector? I know that oil was discovered a long time ago, but the EPA was not entirely prepared. So how is the agency making itself prepared to handle all that is going to happen in oil and gas and all that has been happening in oil and gas?
Well, thank you, Shikema, for affording me this opportunity to be interviewed, and very good question. But you know something, the EPA was in existence since 1996, some 25 years roughly. Now, you would expect that the EPA would have had and developed its capacity in various aspects, various sectors. We talk about the mining, the forestry, and general environmental, industrial aspects as well. So I don't think we were not prepared. I think we were in a sense and to some extent, but of course it was a new sector.
Yeah.
So understanding the sector was a difference. I mean, we have here a cadre of trained professionals, in environmental sciences and chemistry and what's not. The key thing, I mean, the oil and gas sector, I don't believe personally it's rocket science. All right? The various and specific environmental media still remains. Your water quality, your air quality, for example. So our officers here, had that capacity. They understand what is required in terms for air quality, for water quality, for biodiversity, and what's not. I myself am trained in marine resources governance. And this is not my first time here with the EPA. I have a long history with the EPA since before it was the EPA. Now, how are we preparing? We have three approaches basically to this. One is, of course, the capacity, human resource capacity. Two is using technology. And three, our legal system, our legal framework. Now, what do I mean by capacity? Any agency, any organization would always want more staff, more, to go to address all the various sectors. Now, specifically for the oil and gas sector, I mentioned that it was a new sector. We didn't understand it in terms of the operations and what's not. So that area in terms of building our capacity. So for example, we have sent our staff for training to see what happens elsewhere, for example, offshore production, how other regulatory agencies deal with the oil and gas sector. So we've been doing that by building our human capacity. We have petroleum engineers who are on board, and I want to thank my predecessors and so on for ensuring that we have engineers in-house in that regard. So that's an added capacity that we're building. From the technology point of view, now there are various technologies has evolved, and you can hear about the Internet of Things, where you can remotely sit here and have technology monitor various capacity or aspects offshore. So you can set up a buoy with some automatic monitoring of water quality. There are technology on board of the FPSOs that reads out the flare emissions, for example, or release of gases, what's not, and they're actually calibrated instruments that reads in real time that information. Now, what we're trying to do here is to set up our remote capabilities. So rather than all of us being there, 24/7, on board, we can have that dashboard here set up with internet connectivity, so you can see real time what's happening on board. All right. We are working what we call a monitoring MRVS, monitoring, reporting, verification system. So not just depending on what an operator is sending to us, we can have that real time. So the dashboard sets up somewhere here in the agency. Maybe have connections with other agencies who need to monitor offshore as well. And I think it's in the news that EPGL, one of the operators, they're bringing a fiber optic cable. That will obviously boost our potential for connecting to that system. We have a project with on the Rio Convention that through the UNDP that is building our capacity for the networking capabilities and infrastructure to perhaps connect to that existing system onshore from these operators, so we can monitor real time these things. So technology, of course, our capacity. The Act is the Bible for the agency. And all we need to do is go by what the Act says. So the Act specifies conditions, specifies, provision, makes provision for what the operator needs to ensure that they are abide by to ensure compliance. And we at the agency, we are ensuring our staff understand this Act so that they can execute it and be able to understand and recognize when there are breaches, offshore or any other sector, whether it's mining or forestry. So all in all, those are the three areas of how we are preparing to monitor the offshore oil and gas sector.
All right, some follow-up questions. When do you see that monitoring system being up and running? Because Guyana has been producing oil for, say, quite some time, even though we're still a baby in the industry.
Right. Yeah.
When can we see that system up and running?
Well, the one I've just mentioned, over the next 3 to 4 months, we have to get the network system in place here, with the computers and what's not. We're currently in engagement with the operator, in this case EPGL, to see how we can bring that forward. And rest assured, I want this done the soonest. So by early next year, I'd say we should have something to start with. And of course, these things can be built upon. You may not have the entire, your expectations for it, but you may start with various phases that you can build that capacity. So by the end of the year, we should have our networking capability with the computers and what's not that can connect to any existing, once it comes on shore, the fiber optic, whatever, we can read into it. That being said, not only, we also are ensuring that staff goes on board so that they can actually be there.
Yes, that was my next question.
To monitor physically and verify. My intention was to have somebody on a constant basis, but of course, because of COVID issues, those things prevented the changes. But going forward, we will work on ensuring that there is somebody from the agency, and maybe support from other agencies like the GGMC and so on, to be on board to monitor and, if necessary, at least audit when it's there. And that's our regular process. We would go to other permitted development activities, whether in mining or forestry, for example, and we'll do audits or inspections from time to time based on our schedule. All right. So that is the all in all how we are approaching this thing.
So there is no petroleum monitoring unit right now.
Yes. We actually thanks for bringing that. We actually have a dedicated oil and gas unit that was established, and we're building the staff capability for that right now. Right now it's a bit small, but we're building over the next couple of maybe 2 weeks. We should be bringing in some more staff to man that unit, and so then we can be able to send persons on board.
And how many persons are on that unit currently?
Well, I think we have about 6 persons in that unit right now, and we're looking for an additional 9 over the next couple of weeks.
All right. So
and of course, it will grow as needed.
Yes, of course.
All right.
I could recall that there was an audit done of the EPA, and one of the audit findings they said that there was a shortage of staff at the EPA. How from the point of that audit to now, how has the EPA expanded and increased their capacity? Yeah.
Well, that audit I think was done sometime about 6-7 years ago. And I honestly must say, because I was here at the agency at that time, what we were saying is what we were projecting at that time. What was the ideal agency, to deal with the gamut of issues and projects here. We were not necessarily saying at that time that we were so understaffed or so, we don't have the capacity to do anything. We were here since 1996. We were doing things. We were doing and managing those things. So to answer your question, all right, we are making pointed, intervention in terms of, as I mentioned before, building our capacity in terms of the numbers. So what I recall, give you an example, maybe about 2-3 years ago, we were just 80 staff members. I think now we've grown to 122. All right. Of course, this is not only technical, this is also administrative, because everything is an agency in its entirety. You have to have support staff as well. We're working with our partner agencies to provide, technology so that we can use in terms of monitoring, these, water quality monitoring kits and those kind of things we're working on. We had those, we always had them, But they get old, and and
Yeah.
technology improves. So we always have to keep abreast with technology to make our lives easier, so that we can go into the field and quickly monitor a water quality sample or an air quality or something. And one other thing, and not only in terms of our expertise in-house, we also have the option, and we do it from time to time, where we seek external support, expertise in oil and gas or any other sector, to support the agency as we see fit to do. You know.
Okay, we can talk a bit about what are some of the constraints currently faced by the EPA that
Okay.
hampers the agency from effectively executing its mandate.
Okay. I honestly would say that there isn't anything significantly affecting our execution of the mandate. We've been doing that since 1996. As I mentioned in the earlier questions there, which are linked, to this one, perhaps a link to the first one, I think we always would want more capabilities in terms of number of staff, and of course the technology and the equipment that we need. So I believe if we have this technology and we can remotely monitor and those kind of things, will help us to improve our capabilities. And any agency would want to improve. We don't want to be stagnant. So right now we're doing the best we can with the manpower that we have, the technology that we have currently, but we want to improve, right? And as I outlined, moving along updated technology and building our staff capacity to get there.
All right, and this is one of my babies,
Mhm.
waste